Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 118 based on novel. So let's start. What is it? Cripple asked in bewilderment. Qin Mu stroked his chin and plucked out a beard hair while saying, I think the techniques in this book detail the method to connect the divine bridge. Cripple didn't hear clearly and asked, what bridge? Divine bridge. Qin Mu continued to take measurements while saying, divine treasures aren't like the meridians in the human body, who are right there so one can execute the technique just with one look. Divine treasures are empty spaces, so when vital chi need to move around there, each and every millimeter possesses a different dimension. Thus, I need to measure the specific dimensions. It's hard to determine the coordinates in space, and any carelessness would result in a mistake. Cripple's face was blank as he stared at Qin Mu changing a scale to continue measuring the picture in the golden book. Qin Mu took out brush and paper to write down the data of his measurements. Without even raising his head, he continued, if there's a mistake in the dimensions. The smallest mistake at the digits of Mo Hu is no different from a mistake of 1,000 miles. My calculations have to be accurate and reach all the way to the digits behind Mo Hu. Furthermore, the size of the human body in the painting is different from the size of a real human body. The size of the divine treasure here is also different from the divine treasures of a real human, so let me calculate the underlying numerical values first. The size of everyone's divine bridge divine treasure is different, but with the underlying numerical values, one will be able to cultivate using ratio. In that case, they will be able to cultivate the secrets of Magpie Bridge. Cripple blurted out again, what bridge? Bewildered, Qin Mu smiled, Magpie Bridge. Grandpa Cripple, you seem to be in a daze. I shan't talk to you anymore. This part here is troublesome to calculate and is also very difficult. I will need to spend a very long time. Suddenly, village chief's head popped over, and he asked with excitement, what bridge? Qin Mu was then even more bewildered. Village chief, you are also in a daze. Magpie Bridge. That's not it. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor turned back and said quickly, that's not it. Before Magpie Bridge you had clearly said Divine Bridge. That's right. Cripple immediately said. I've also heard Divine Bridge. Village Chief nodded repeatedly. It was Divine Bridge. Qin Mu came to a realization and smiled. The divine bridge of this man in the painting is broken, and the technique he uses to repair it is called Magpie Bridge. I was just calculating the mathematical reasoning needed in Secrets of Magpie Bridge. This technique is very difficult to cultivate, and there are way too many things that need to be measured here. Technique used to repair the divine bridge. The aura of the three men suddenly erupted, and the carriage that was flying in midair was shattered in two pieces. The broken fragments then turned into powder from the vibrations caused by the terrifying aura. Qin Mu immediately rose into the sky while holding the golden book and the data he'd measured next to his chest. His clothes dyed dark from the spilled ink. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, Village Chief, and Cripple nearly grabbed for the golden book. But once they saw Qin Mu hugging it to his chest, they paused and pulled back their hands, barely able to contain the excitement in their hearts. Luckily this golden book is not afraid of being stained by ink. Otherwise, your sins would be huge, Qin Mu grumbled. Village Chief immediately said, land on the ground first. The four of them dropped down, and everywhere around them was corpses. Some places were even blazing with fire and billowing with smoke. Those were traces left behind by fire divine arts. In the meantime, the army of barbarian Di Empire banged on the gates of Helan Pass in hopes to escape, but the guards kept the city gate tightly shut, unwilling to open it to let them in. This was to prevent Eternal Peace Empire from taking the chance to invade. The defeated army was actually bashing against Helan Pass frantically. The high wall crumbled continuously from being bashed by the numerous strong practitioners, and shattered rocks began to fly around. However, what they broke through was the outer city wall since it was wide enough, but the inner wall still stood strong. The soldiers guarding the city executed their divine arts and spirit weapons at the ground below, attacking both friend or foe, killing the comrades with whom not long ago they had been fighting on the same side. All kinds of vulgarities were hurled from below the city wall, turning the situation outside too horrible to see. The corpses below the city piled up into a mountain. In front of Helan Pass, the fleet led by Sword Hall Master and Yuyuan Chuyun stopped 60 miles away, and didn't move forward anymore. True origin cannons shot continuously, smashing the city tower and gate into pieces. Instantly, countless escapees poured into the city like a flood. The hands and feet of Pangong So, who was in the city, turned ice cold. The city gate was destroyed, and the defeated army rushed into the city. Helan Pass no longer had any chance of stopping the enemy's advance. The defeated army fell onto the guards inside the pass, who found it hard to form formations, so they decided to make a run for it as well. If the enemy took this chance to rush in and massacre them in an orderly manner, the prairie would definitely suffer a complete loss. Bring me away immediately. Pangong So steeled his heart and ordered the Shaman King beside him, abandon the city, retreat out of Helan Pass. That Shaman King immediately picked him up and flew out of Helan Pass. On the way, Pangong So said sternly, "Have the disciples of our Roland's Golden Palace all leave the battlefield." The heart of that Shaman King trembled, and he asked in a trembling voice, "Grandmaster, if our disciples of Roland's Golden Palace retreat, the army won't have any way to survive. But Roland's Golden Palace will survive." Pangong So was extremely calm. "By defending, the disciples of our Roland's Golden Palace will only die in this city. We have to preserve our strength. The true battlefield is on the prairie. The reputation of our Roland's Golden Palace is not due to the respect and worship of the tribes. If Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor wants to take over the prairie, he will have to pay a big price." The Shaman King immediately gathered his vital chi and transformed it into a world-shaking shout that spread throughout the battlefield. It ordered the disciples of Roland's Golden Palace to retreat. After that, the situation became even more disorderly. The heart of the army was totally gone, and everyone wanted to just escape for their lives. They poured through the city gate with people squeezing past one another, trampling on the fallen. There were some who had cultivated flying divine arts, so they flew up into mid-air, and were shot down by the true origin cannons. Yuyuan Chuyun controlled the sky so that no divine arts practitioners of barbarian Di Empire could escape in this way. Sword Hall Master in the meantime controlled the ground, but he didn't block the people from escaping back into the pass. Instead, he wiped out all the enemies on the land in front of him, forcing the rest to escape even more frantically. Below the flying ships, the army of Eternal Peace Empire poured forward to clean up the remnants on the battlefield. Pangong So turned back to take a look at Helan Pass, which was already starting to crumble. Fire blazed in the city, and thick smoke billowed up into the sky. The soldiers of barbarian Di Empire were all escaping for their lives. Some of them tried to scale Helan Mountain when they couldn't get out of the city, but most of them fell and became meat paste. Numerous great shamans and shaman kings flew back and gathered around Pangong So. There were fear and despair on everyone's faces, but Pangong So was calm as he instructed, "Immediately disperse and poison all the water sources in the prairie with shaman poison to have the plague wreak havoc on the land. If the army of Eternal Peace Empire kills its way in, they will all die miserably." Grandmaster. The hearts of all the great shamans and shaman kings trembled violently, and one shaman king said with a sob, "All the tribesmen on the prairie will be poisoned to death as well." Pangong So was indifferent. The prairie is big enough. As long as we don't poison all the big cities, we can still preserve a portion of the tribesmen. But there are so many nomadic small tribes. Pan Gong Tso was expressionless. Those are all poor and lowly people. For them to die along with the divine arts practitioners of Eternal Peace Empire, it's worth it. Immediately disperse and poison the water. There can be no delay. Otherwise, when the army of Eternal Peace Empire reaches here, their first target will be Roland's Golden Palace. Most of the great shamans and shaman kings fell into a daze, before dispersing in all directions. Pan Gong Tso overlooked Helan Pass, where smoke rose from the fires of war, shrouding the crumbling once impregnable pass. He turned around and walked toward the Golden Palace while muttering, "It's been so many years, about 7 or 8,000 years, right? My heart is already as calm as an old well, without a single ripple. This is the first time, right? The first time I have the feeling of wanting to struggle with all my might like in my first lifetime. Eternal Peace Empire, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, Heavenly Devil Cult Master, you guys have once again lit up my fighting spirit." In the battlefield, Qin Mu moved a few corpses to one side and opened up the Golden Book to let Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, Village Chief, and Cripple see its contents. The three heads gathered together and looked nervously at the writings and pictures on the page while frantically calculating and memorizing everything. Marvelous, truly marvelous. How did the people of Carefree Village think of such an intricate method to actually connect the divine bridge like this? How immense of a calculation ability is required to calculate such precise markings before transforming them into a technique? The trio exclaimed endlessly, until Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "Brothers, can I flip the page? Magpie Bridge shouldn't be all there is. There are definitely other techniques on the next page. However, the calculations there will be even more intricate, and require the result of the calculation on Magpie Bridge as a basis." The Golden Book was flipped to the next page, and there was another wave of exclamations. It's indeed the next technique that's calculated off the basis of Magpie Bridge. Secrets of Mysterious Guide is truly remarkable. It's literally building a pavilion in the air. To be able to calculate to this step, this is definitely a godly calculation. This is not what one person could calculate. This is a technique which had probably gathered the wisdom of everyone in Carefree Village in order to be calculated. Quick, 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 flip to the next page. What are you looking at me for? I have no hands. After the three of them looked at it for quite some time, loud explosions and cheers suddenly came from far away. Qin Mu raised his head to look over and gave a cough. Helan Pass has been conquered. Without saying anything, the trio continued to read the Golden Book. Qin Mu shook his head. Shouldn't we be going over? The sky is going to turn dark soon. If we stay at Duck Tongue Zone, we will be in danger when the darkness invades at night. This is Great Ruins after all. The trio remained silent. Qin Mu was bored to death, and after waiting for a moment more, he couldn't resist saying, "No matter for how long you guys look at it, if you can't calculate the mathematical reasoning in the technique, any hasty cultivations will end up for naught." The trio then finally lifted their head. They reluctantly pulled their gazes away from the Golden Book, and Qin Mu immediately asked, "Grandpa Village Chief, do you have confidence in patching your divine bridge?" Village Chief shook his head and said, "I don't have much lifespan left, so it will depend on my fate whether I can patch my divine bridge before I die from old age." From the three kinds of techniques in this book, patching the divine bridge is no easy task. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor nodded. Before that, we first need to calculate the mathematical reasoning inside these three techniques. This point is very important, and we must build the algebra model as soon as possible. Once that is done, we will be able to spread this knowledge. Cripple sneered. Imperial Preceptor, you want to spread this technique that could make people become gods and devils, but have you asked permission from the person from Carefree Village's Qin family? After all, these 3 techniques don't belong to you. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was stunned for a moment, then said apologetically, I only thought if this technique can or cannot be spread, but I forgot to ask the owner. Cult Master Qin Mu smiled. I didn't plan to keep it to myself. I was just thinking that we should spread it out as well, since there's no need to keep it only for myself. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor looked into his eyes in an attempt to know his true intention, but he could only see Qin Mu's incomparably clear gaze. He suddenly sighed. Old Human Emperor, I finally understand why you chose him as your successor. He indeed has the quality and the breadth of mind to be the Human Emperor. He may be young, but his mindset is broad enough. Mua has been taught by us, so of course his mindset is broad enough. Village Chief said calmly. If Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor knew the backgrounds of the 9 elders, he would know why Qin Mu had the gaze and breadth of mind that others of his age did not. The 9 elders of Disabled Elderly Village were Qin Mu's closest kin, and also his teachers. Among these 9, there was the current Rulai, the spear god of the past, the number 1 in forging treasures with a penchant for mischievousness Mute, the once incomparably handsome yet ruthless Jade Face Poison King Apothecary, and the saintess of heavenly devil cult that charmed both the gods and devils in the world. There was also Deaf, who was honored as art saint by Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, Cripple who had never slipped up, and could escape from his grasp despite having a leg severed, and Butcher who was acclaimed as Heaven Knife, brandishing his knives to fight with the gods. There was also the glorious human emperor of his generation, Village Chief. All of them were broad-minded and open. Some were emotional, some merciful, some steady, some crafty, some good at keeping to themselves, some filled with heroic spirit and hot-bloodedness, some good at scheming, and some were ruthless. However, what all of them had was utter sincerity, the heart of a newborn. It was because of such a village and such people that Qin Mu had been groomed into a person that he was, one that even the saint that appears once every 500 years admired. Qin Mu didn't feel anything special about himself, however. After walking out of Disabled Elderly Village, he didn't think he was very powerful. After all, since he was the overlord body, it was natural for him to get some accomplishments, so there was no need to make a fuss out of nothing. However, in the eyes of others, he was simply a monster. No matter if it was poisoning or saving people, or even forging, stealing, painting, and calligraphy, he was one of the professionals in this world. Only Qin Mu's battle prowess wasn't caught in the eyes of others. He had cultivated diligently to raise his abilities, but this point wasn't as eye-catching in Eternal Peace where the stars were bright. Yet even this most unremarkable battle prowess could cause Pangong So to suffer over and over again, after having swept through his peers. Qin Mu didn't have high attainments in algebra when he had left Disabled Elderly Village, but he had improved by leaps and bounds afterward. Even people from Dao Sect might not have comprehended computational canon of supreme mystery as well as he did. Even though Qin Mu wasn't a person from Dao Sect, he had thoroughly studied computation canon of supreme mystery in detail. He had started late yet he had reached the end first. There were not many people who could surpass him in algebra in this world. The more Imperial Preceptor got into contact with him, the more he felt that this youth was extraordinary. If we want to transform the content in the Golden Book into algebra models, we will need people who are proficient in algebra to assist. Qin Mu put away the Golden Book and continued, this first technique, Secrets of Magpie Bridge. I can finish the measurements in 1 month and construct the algebra model. However, the second technique, Secrets of Mysterious Guide, and the third technique, Secrets of Divine Crossing, have too many things which need to be calculated. If there's only me to sort them out, I will probably take a year. That's way too long. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, Village Chief, and Cripple revealed grim looks. To construct the algebra mode, they would need to measure every angle in the space of the Golden Book, using numerals to reconstruct the coordinates of the three techniques in space. This point was of utmost importance. After having the algebra model, using the ratio of the divine bridge in the Golden Book on one's own divine bridge for measurement, one could calculate the coordinates and determine how to circulate the techniques in their own divine treasures. Only then could one manage to learn the secrets of Magpie Bridge and construct the Magpie Bridge. Once when it patched the divine bridge and extended it, could the next step be taken, which was Secrets of Mysterious Guide, refining a mysterious guide bridge from the celestial heavens on the other side. After Secrets of Mysterious Guide were cultivated, they could then learn Secrets of Divine Crossing. If there was a mistake in any of the calculations of Magpie Bridge, Mysterious Guide Bridge, and Divine Crossing Bridge, they wouldn't be able to match one another. All efforts would be for naught, and everything done up until then would be wasted. In Dao Sect, the one with the best algebra is Old Dao Master. However, he retired and went God knows where. The next one would be the current Dao Master, who was before Daozi Lin Xian. Qin Mu continued measuring while saying, his attainments in algebra are extremely high. I saw him execute Dao Sword before, his algebra is very strong. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's head started aching as he said slowly, Dao Sect and Eternal Peace Empire don't have a good relationship, but we need to invite them over. Besides the Golden Book, we also need them for Sunshot Divine Cannon. That weapon is extremely important and we definitely need to make it. With just Dao Sect's manpower alone, it won't be enough to complete these two things, so I'll still need to go to Little Jade capital as well. However, he looked in the direction of the prairie and his head ached even more. Now that barbarian Di Empire was defeated, it was the best time to conquer the prairie. He definitely couldn't let go of this chance. Inviting Dao Sect over, heading to Little Jade capital, sending the army into the prairie to overthrow Roland's golden palace. All of these things were extremely important, yet he didn't know a cloning technique. Meanwhile in the north, Wolfstore country was still attacking Eternal Peace. With so many things to handle at once, Imperial Preceptor's head was about to explode. I'm very familiar with Dao Master, so I can go to Dao Sect. Maybe Dao Master Lin Xian can be moved. Qin Mu smiled before continuing, I can also take a trip to Little Jade capital. I've met Wang Muren and his master, Wanderergen, before. I killed Wanderergen, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said. You're Heavenly Devil Cult Master, so Little Jade capital might not treat you nicely. Qin Mu looked at Village Chief and Cripple. Since I've nothing to do, it's good to take a walk now that I'm out. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor understood and said, all right, you guys shall go to Little Jade capital, while I raise the prairie and eradicate Roland's golden palace. 100 of its treasures are mine. Qin Mu immediately said. You promised to let me choose anything. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor replied solemnly, don't worry, my promises always count. Qin Mu relaxed and smiled. Village Chief, Grandpa Cripple, let's return to Helan Pass. We shall bring Xiong Xiu and her daughter, as well as Fatty Dragon, to Dao Sect and Little Jade capital. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor immediately walked toward Helan Pass, while Qin Mu and the rest returned to Helan Pass to fetch Xiong Xiu and her daughter. The youth then lifted Village Chief up and placed him in the herb basket. Qin Mu then suddenly came to a realization. Crap, I've never been to Little Jade capital. Village Chief said indifferently, I've been there before. There are only bags of old bones there, stinky and tough. Even if you go over there, you might not be able to move them. Cripple rubbed his palms in excitement. Little Jade capital, I've not been there before. Without stealing from this sacred ground, my life won't be complete. A pity old Ma is not here. Xiong Chia raised her head and looked at Cripple seriously. Grandpa Cripple, you will be beaten to death for stealing. Cripple was rather pleased with this little girl and caressed her head while beaming at her. Does Chia want to be the number 3 sacred hands in this world? Yes. The little girl's voice was loud and clear. In Helan Pass, all the troops were consolidating their armaments, while chief generals came forth to report to Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor about the losses. The casualties weren't too severe, and couldn't be compared to the small-scale battle previously. All kinds of spirit weapons and supplies like rations and spirit medicine were mostly untouched. Sword Hall Master and Chuyun also came forth to report. Imperial Preceptor, there are no more medicinal stones. What? Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor cried out. The medicinal stones for the new army have already been finished, Sword Hall Master said once more. Impossible. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor suddenly stood up. The flying ships were stocked with 3 months' worth of medicinal stones, so how can they all be gone in a day? Sword Hall Master didn't have many words. Finished by firing the cannons. Imperial Preceptor, the cannons improved by Academician Qin have a huge consumption in regards to energy, and the improved pill furnaces also require more medicinal stones. In that battle earlier, the cannon beam fired from each cannon was 100 times stronger than in the past. The consumption was also 100 times greater than in the past. Therefore, the medicinal stones were quickly depleted, explained Chuyun. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor composed himself and said, in that case, we can't leave the pursuing to the new army. Let the cavalry and flying units give chase. Your new army shall first rest and reorganize itself. When the medicinal stones are shipped over, I'll have another mission for you guys. Imperial Preceptor, our new army doesn't have a name yet. May Imperial Preceptor bestow us a name, Chuyun said. I would be breaking the rules by bestowing a name. The Emperor has to be the one who does it. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor waved his hand to dismiss them while thinking to himself, how are they all depleted just like that? The things that Cult Master Qin improves seem to not take our hard-earned capital into consideration, accumulating energy at all costs. It's as if he's scared the firepower wouldn't be enough. Right at that moment, a messenger from a flying unit came over to report. With a whoosh, a 9-headed bird landed on the ground and tumbled forward, transforming into a divine arts practitioner. While kneeling on one knee, he said, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, General Bian requests for Divine Physician Qin to head to the front lines. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's heart stirred slightly. All the troops were currently resting and reorganizing. Only General Bian had led the army of Helan Pass to chase after the enemy. He was prepared to directly wreak havoc at Yellow Dragon Manor, the capital city of barbarian Di Empire. Bian guarded Helan Pass all year round, and was extremely familiar with the prairie. Once he brought the elites to head straight for Yellow Dragon Manor, he could be said to be moving at Godspeed, so conquering the capital wasn't impossible. Divine Physician Qin has already left for Dao Sect and is no longer here. What happened? Shaman poison. The divine arts practitioner opened up his shirt and revealed his chest. Liver mortis could be seen on his body, and there were also extensive ulcerations. The divine arts practitioners hissed out, our brothers in the army have all suffered from shaman poison, and countless of them have already died. The military doctor from Imperial College says that great shamans have poisoned the water. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor looked over with a grim face, then quickly stood up. Bring me over to have a look. The divine arts practitioners cultivated corporeal body divine art, and wanted to transform back into a 9-headed bird, when Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor circulated his magic power to fix him in place, making his body float up in the air with him. He said solemnly, Don't use your magic power. Otherwise, the shaman poison will spread even faster. You just need to point me in the right direction. His speed was extremely fast, and the space under his feet seemed to shrink rapidly. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor crossed 1,000 miles, catching up with Bian troops. Before Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor even descended from the sky, he was stunned. All around, there were corpses of humans and livestock throughout the whole of the prairie, and they weren't only of Eternal Peace army led by Bian. Most of the corpses were of shepherds and livestock that lived there for generations. The rate at which the corpses were decomposing was simply without equal. There were many flies in the skies, circling the countless corpses, but none of them dared to land. Any of the brave who landed died. The corners of Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's eyes twitched. Suddenly, the divine arts practitioner behind him grunted and puked out fresh blood as well as the intestines. He died an unnatural death, and his corpse fell off the sky. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's heart became heavier and heavier. Even if Qin Mu, this divine physician, was to come here, it would be useless. Roland's golden palace had poisoned the entire prairie, so the scale was simply too great. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor formed his hands into tight fists, as he walked among the seas and mountains of corpses. There were numerous soldiers beside Bian that were still alive, but their bodies were already rapidly decomposing. The corners of Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's eyes twitched as he looked at Bian. This man's cultivation was dense, so the shaman poison couldn't get close to him. However, this old general had a blank gaze. He sat in a daze beside a young officer, which was his son who had already died from the poison. General Bian lifted up his head in a daze, his eyes lifeless. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor turned back and left while saying with a solemn face, "You guys shall stay here, don't enter the pass." Bian looked at his back that was walking away, and suddenly shouted, "Imperial Preceptor, we still have many sons of Eternal Peace here, we can't let them all die here." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's body trembled, but he didn't stop. He continued to walk toward Helan Pass. In the pass, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor looked at the divine arts practitioners of Eternal Peace Empire that were carrying green-colored bottle gourds. No one made a sound. "Let's begin." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor closed his eyes and waved his hands. "Flood the prairie and wash away the shaman poison." The bottle gourds opened up, and dark clouds rose into the air to cover the prairie. Bolts of lightning crackled as they struck down, and heavy rain descended from the sky. About 10 days later, the rain gradually stopped. By then, the prairie had already become a kingdom of water. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor entered it once again, and saw countless people and livestock that had drowned. He found the army of Qin Pass of whom only Bian was rest. All the rest had died. "General Bian, let's return to the pass," Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said gently. Bian looked at him in a daze and croaked, "I brought them out, but I couldn't bring them back. I'm ashamed to face them." "Imperial Preceptor, bring our corpses back to the Empire." "I'm ashamed to face you guys." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor opened his mouth to speak, but Bian drew his sword to sever his own head. With his 2 hands, he placed his head in front of him. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor picked up this head filled with white hair while Bian corpse collapsed to the ground. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor put away Bian head properly while looking at the corpses on the floor, his heart trembling. He saw that Bian had placed the corpses of the soldiers of Qin Pass in an orderly manner during the 10 days of heavy rain. The old general had to have braved the storm to place the corpses of his soldiers together. There was even a wooden tablet beside each and every body. On the tablet were the names of the fallen. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor walked forward, the corpses of the soldiers of Qin Mu Pass on both his sides. On every corpse, there was a wooden tablet, and each one had a name written on it. Bian could recognize each and every soldier under him, able to name every single one of them. "You're a qualified general." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor stopped, no longer going forward. He turned around, and his gown fluttered as countless of corpses flew up, following him back to eternal peace. Back in the country, the soldiers' families were still longing for their return. Some of the fallen were young sons, some old fathers, some were husbands who had come out for war, and there were also some who were daughters, wives, and mothers who had people waiting for them at home. He wanted to send them home. Roland's Golden Palace. Imperial Preceptor looked to the east before turning his head away, and walking back to eternal peace. The night descended, and another world overlapped with this world. An ancient boat with ghostly lights sailed over, and elders appeared under numerous dots of light, folding paper men and paper boats. The souls on the battlefield quietly boarded the boats, without a single person making a sound. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor passed by their sides, not disturbing the envoys of Yudu. The heroes who had died in battle and the herdsmen of the prairie that had died to poison would be guided to the mysterious Yudu. No one knew who were the ones that were receiving them. In the meantime, Qin Mu scaled up Kunlun Jade Void Mountain. This place was known as Jade Void Paradise, and didn't seem like the real world. Everywhere one looked there was a feeling of an immortal sacred ground. Even the huge snow disaster that had shrouded Eternal Peace Empire hadn't affected this place in the slightest. It was unlike Great Thunderclap Monastery's Mount Meru, which was located high at the top and had tens of thousands of monasteries. It resulted in a dazzling sight, which people could see from far away. Their hearts would shake from the vastness of Buddhism. Jade Void Paradise was located between two mountains and hidden in the depths. If one wanted to go there, they would have to flip through thousands of mountains and rivers, and even then they might not be able to find this sacred ground. Dao Sect had people of cultivation, who didn't like others to disturb their peace. These Taoists rarely left for the outside. The dragon Helan came to the bottom of the mountain. There weren't any strange beasts guarding the gate of Jade Void Mountain, only a straw hut within which lived an old Daoist. When the group approached the place, he was cooking his meal. Qin Mu leaped down from the dragon Helan and greeted that old Daoist. "Heavenly Saint Cult Master is here to meet Dao Master. May Senior Brother please notify him." The old Daoist was astonished and took a good look at him. He then took a glance at the herb basket on his back and the crippled man that was full of smiles. "So it's Heavenly Devil Cult Master. You have killed quite a lot of old Dao's senior brothers in that battle at the capital city." The old Daoist then sized Cripple up and revealed a suspicious look. Qin Mu smiled and said, "Daoists are most afraid of people disturbing their peace, yet they came to disturb the peace of other people. They deserved to be killed." The old Daoist shook his head and said, "For the people of the world, Daoists sometimes have to make a move. Heavenly Devil Cult Master, I won't argue with you. You guys shall go up the mountain yourselves. Don't disturb my cultivation." Cripple smiled. Dao Sect's people are lazy, so they don't restrict anyone from scaling their mountain. There aren't that many rules here. The old Daoist looked at Cripple again, and his expression suddenly changed drastically. "You guys can go up the mountain, but this old man can't go up. He must stay here." Qin Mu was puzzled. Angered, the old Daoist said, "I didn't recognize him at first. I only remembered after hearing his voice. Back when the thief god ran up Jade Void Mountain and wreaked havoc, he stole nearly everything we had. How many years ago was that? I've already washed my heart and renewed my face, turning over a new leaf," Cripple muttered. "Peh peh peh." That old Daoist ignored him and called over his dog. A huge yellow creature shakily lumbered over from the toilet while wagging its tail. The old Daoist then shouted, "A dog can't stop himself from eating shit." Cripple was angered. This old Daoist scolded me in a roundabout way. Even though he was furious, he was still full of smiles, making people feel as though they were bathing in the spring wind. Qin Mu's heart jumped a beat, and he secretly prayed for the old Daoist. He carried village chief, while the dragon Helan followed after them up the mountain. Cripple then suddenly flashed like a phantom, and his body vanished. He laughed. "If you don't let me up the mountain, try stopping me." The old Daoist hurriedly gave chase, and the two of them disappeared into Jade Void Mountain. This video will end here.